pushing yourself is hard. And we reach that point where it's like, no, I just want to sit down. But if you can push through that, that's what discipline is. And if you have the strength to push through that, you're becoming a new person. You're becoming stronger.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So if you can do that, the next time around, you think, well, I've done this before. So let's keep going. And it's progression. But it's not a competition. I want to be better than Jared or CUNY. It's, I want to be better than who I was yesterday.
We are here with a very, 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 very good friend of ours, Jessey. Someone who, to be honest, I think he doesn't realise how much he has to give, and I'm hoping that we can dive into that and show everyone exactly what he does have to give today. So Jessey is, how would we describe you? Owner of Wineify, which is a podcast which both Jared and I have been a part of. Which we were very, very fortunate in the beginning because that's taking an incredible journey. And Jessey has an amazing story. I think he's a lot more resilient than what he thinks. He's the one who pushes us in the swims almost every morning. Killer breath holds and an absolute great teeth.
Awesome smile. Best smile.
And an absolute bundle of love and joy. So, Jessey, we're welcome.
How can I not come on to this podcast if I'm getting flattered like that?
That's what it's all about. We're just going to flatter you.
Absolute pleasure to be here, fellas. And we're sitting in the DMR gym, which is nice and quiet. And we've also got a special guest on the sideline, listening in as long as it takes to get through this amazing podcast.
Absolutely, yeah. We have Jake Boutan. Who's another incredible friend of mine who we're definitely going to get on very, very soon. So, bro, I mean, I know we've had conversations, and when we kind of brought up trying to get you onto the podcast, it was like the response was, well, I don't know what I have to give. And I think I'm really hoping that we can take the trajectory today to really shape that story for you, because we were talking about before, and I feel like I'm in the same boat. It's like we're so young. We're still in the middle of the building of the story. So when we hear these stories about people who have gone through all these things in their lives and achieved all these incredible things, and now they're on the back end speaking about the past, going, this is what I learned and this is who I became and this is all the things that I went through to discover all of this. We're still in that discovery mode. So it can be really hard when we're so in the middle and so young and still working everything out. It can be hard to kind of look back and go, well, I'm in a great place because we're still moving forward.
Yeah.
And I think we're all in an incredible place at the moment, but there's so much more to be excited for moving forward with our personal brands and the Terrigal Flappers and the community that's being built and all these different things. We're just moving our way through, and so I can completely relate to you. But there's so many things that I think Jared and I don't know about you that we really want to uncover. There's a lot of things that we see on the outside, and that's a great smile, a lot of love, an insane amount of intelligence, a huge level of resilience. And so this is about uncovering that, looking at where it's come from, but also where you're heading as well. Because I know that you're on a great path, great trajectory, and so it's going to be really great to get your insight on what is a meaningful life for you, and where do you want to head, and what do you want to make out of your life. So to begin with, we're going to start with what was childhood like for you? What was it growing up for you? Were you always this goddamn happy?
Oh, geez, I don't know. It's funny, isn't it? But I think you're right, CUNY, in regards to that. So many people, when we're young, we feel like our stories are just beginning, and they are, but we all have learnt lessons. And I think that if people are coming onto this podcast to listen and are checking us out, I think the main things I want to touch on are some of the attitudes I have. And right now, being so young, it's striving for progress and not perfection. Abundance is the daughter of gratitude. To live a life by design and not default, which is one of my taglines when it comes to Wineify and my personal belief. And another big thing is to ask better questions. So just going back to when I was a kid, it's interesting, everyone's childhood is inherently valuable. We all have a story. But I want to touch on a few things of where I've come from now. And growing up, like I was, I've got 2 older brothers, so I've got a lot of learning from them. And I grew up in Sydney and then came up to the coast to live on some land. And when I did that, with my family, I just had this amazing outdoor space to run around and grow up with. And I always felt like I was in my own little world.
What did you do growing up? Because I know there's an element of you that was very competitive as well. Loved your sport, loved your footy. Where did that come up for you?
Yeah, it's hard to, when you think about your childhood, what was a defining moment, And I'm 23, so I'm still growing up every day, and I feel like I'm still developing. My personality's changing every month. But when you look back on it, like, what were those defining moments? What were the things that really shaped me as a person? It was my family. It was having older brothers. It was being outdoors and trying new things and creating and being hands-on. And growing up into that, I just feel like having older brothers was a big thing for me because I could learn from their mistakes and their successes and judge what I wanted to do, right? And being competitive is always for me now not to be better than someone else, but to be better than the person I was yesterday. And for me, that's super important still. And like, discipline is hard.
Yeah.
Pushing yourself is hard. And we reach that point where it's like, no, I just want to sit down. But if you can push through that, that's what discipline is. And if you have the strength to push through that, you're becoming a new person. You're becoming stronger.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So if you can do that, the next time around, you think, well, I've done this before. So let's keep going. And it's progression. But it's not a competition that I want to be better than Jared or CUNY. It's, I want to be better than who I was yesterday.
You set a new standard as well once you start to develop those habits, particularly when you're around a good environment. Like those habits, those disciplines, for example, a swim in the morning doesn't become a chore. It's not a, fuck, I got to do this today. It's a, I got to go see great people. And also you have that, we all have that little thought of, oh, should we go in today? But we all do it. So it's like building habits and disciplines that you enjoy as well, instead of, because I feel like for a lot of people, they build disciplines and habits that aren't necessarily enjoyable, and there's ones out there that we need to implement. And I often find that it's like you want to find the joy in these things too as well. So, I think when you can connect with a good environment and you can instill those habits and disciplines, it becomes far easier as well.
Oh yeah, and like the water doesn't get any warmer. You just get stronger. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just get stronger. You get braver. And it's not necessarily about things become easier. You just become stronger.
Yeah.
So doing that every morning, have a good routine, facing those fears and pushing yourself out of that comfort zone, you become physically, mentally, spiritually stronger. So growing up with 2 older brothers, they made me a lot physically stronger because I had to walk them off sometimes.
Yeah.
And living on a little bit of land wars around motorbikes, space. It was a brilliant childhood. And we think about these things. It's like, what's my story? And usually stories are propelled by conflict and tension. Growing up, man, I didn't have any tension. I was a happy kid. I was in these spaces, and I had 2 older brothers to learn from, and I'm just so eternally grateful for that. And the way I see my life now is that from those good experiences, I have a duty to stand on the shoulders of those people around me to attain things greater. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so for the audience listening today, I'm just so grateful right now to do that yet again. And just to share this time with you guys. Oh, I'm just so excited. I can feel it in my heart, and I'm just so grateful that you guys are here doing what you're doing. And during COVID, it's obviously been a bit challenging because your trip down to Melbourne was really cutting it thin. Now we get to be able to turn to our community and think about the voices that are here and really focus on those voices to empower the coast. And that's hopefully what I'm trying to do with Wineify. And my little podcast is to give those people a space to talk and time to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many incredible stories. I mean, look, geography doesn't matter. We don't have to go to Melbourne to find some incredibly inspiring people. We don't have to travel the world to find some incredibly inspiring people. I mean, it's often right in front of us. And it is funny, when you were saying that, I was thinking, like, what are the things that people say that really inspire us and really resonate with us? And yes, they come from, a lot of the times they come from highly credible people, because they've built that credibility, and so they've built that trust, and so we trust what they say. But it doesn't mean that what they're saying only those people can say. Yeah. There's a lot of things. I mean, I was listening to when you were saying before about getting up and how it doesn't get easier, you just get stronger. And I was listening to David Goggins the other day, and I said this at the boys' night here in the gym. It's like, it was so incredible and insightful for him to go, you know what? Getting up and making those tough decisions, it doesn't get easier. The more resilient you get, it doesn't get easier to wake up. You just start to gain a lot more perspective, and you start to go, you know what, if I don't get up, I'm just going to go downhill. Like, what good's it going to do for me? It gives you that perspective, and it goes, why shouldn't you get up? The head noise is still there. The body soreness is still there. The mental fatigue, the whatever it is, we all battle it. It never goes away. And you look at someone like David Goggins and you go, nah, he wouldn't get that. Like, he's one of the toughest guys in the world. He's resilient as all hell. He wouldn't get that. He does. He just doesn't complain about it.
Absolutely.
And he doesn't allow it to defeat him. That's why you don't see it. And so I think there's so much value and wisdom packed in the people that we least expect, but
they've been given a platform to be able to express it.
They haven't given the platform. They also may not have the confidence. They also may not trust themselves in what they have to offer as well. And it's all these, especially over the last couple of months, and COVID for me personally was incredibly transformative time. And I just remember, like, these tiny little things being said to me, like when we're out in the ocean, we were going for the pin drops, and you're just like, you're stronger than you think. And for some reason, that moment just stuck in my head. And then we had at our first men's night, we had a guy there who had an incredibly tough life. He was 38 years old, and he goes, what do I want out of life? I just want to keep showing up. And that has been my mantra since then, my absolute mantra, from a guy who you'd pass down the street and you wouldn't think twice. And I just think people, right place, right time, have the ability to completely change someone's life. And so that's why I have so much trust in, whether it's this episode, whether it's the next episode, whoever it is, there's always something to gain, because there's always a time for someone when they're really going to be listening. And so
credibility, we feel like it's upsetting, but we feel credibility's come from the amount of followers you have.
Or the amount of crazy things that you've done.
Or the turnover, or the worth that you are. Obviously those minds, your Tony Robbins and all those big guys in mastery, and I guess those worlds are obviously fantastic. Obviously huge amounts of experience, obviously seen huge amount of trends around the world, had the ability to experience different cultures. But that doesn't mean that there aren't like-minded minds on the Central Coast. And I feel like with the crew that we have here and a few other people within the things that we're creating within Wineify and within the gym and the private studio and whatnot, there's definitely something brewing locally that we want to be able to shift, because me and Cooney were speaking about it the other day. Why the fuck do we need to fly to America or travel to Sydney to experience the biggest, the shows or the Tony Robbins events, or, you know, have to go to the ICC Centre to experience this or that? Why? I feel like on the Central Coast we've been silenced by the fact that we think Sydney is the place to be. And that's where all the experts and all the best minds come from. But it's like, yeah, okay, there's minds down there, but what's wrong? There's nothing wrong with this up
here.
They
moved there from the coast.
It's an idea. It's a construct. And I think maybe the coast 15 years ago, sure, there was like you've got the socioeconomic factors. Obviously, Sydney, there's more money circulating, high population, in quotations, more opportunity. But I think the way that the coast is going, it's complete open space to create whatever the fuck we want. There's no
Absolutely.
congestion. There's not much competition, especially in this space. Like, who are we competing with? Absolutely no one. In whatever it is. Whether we want to have a podcast, whether we want to create a swim group, whether we want to start local community events, whatever it might be, it's so much easier for us to reach those people individually because we're some of the only people doing it. But
very interesting. It feels like this episode is so unique. Like you guys are talking about something that I haven't necessarily heard you talk about, you know, and I think it is a result of the pandemic in regards to that. We've become a bit more insulated. We've become a bit more reflective, you know, as individuals, but also in our small businesses, is that we're looking around us and thinking, what do I actually need?
yeah,
What do I really need?
Who do I need?
Right?
sure.
Who do I need? And what can I create around me? And
Yeah.
you guys are so humble in your journey with Bridge the Gap. I mean, I just applaud that. You know, it's a very, very good quality to have. And it shows that this movement is going to be sustainable and it's going to last.
Well, I think, you know what, I think that's our greatest strength. I think, especially for Jared and myself and Mitch as well. And I think everyone who we're around, we realize the importance of this journey as well. And I think with that, some of the greatest lessons you can have comes in learning humility and learning empathy and compassion and what love truly is. And I think it's funny, I think I was talking to Jared about this the other day. We've kind of taken this bit of a detour around the traditional success kind of trajectory in terms of both on great paths, and then it's like, hang on, like there's something missing here. There's something missing. And it's like, let's work on ourselves, then we'll come back. And it's created this entirely different perspective. And I think before you really kick off in your career and your journey, I think you're well on that, like you're there, like you're on that path as well.
How you
and
guys perceive that, you know, because
Sure.
I think this idea of success that so many people hold is quite frankly a bit of BS. Like,
Sure.
Bullshit, right? It's bullshit.
Yeah.
And this is where I was talking about earlier about, you know, abundance is the daughter of gratefulness, is the daughter of gratitude. So we can have abundance in our lives when we're grateful. And that instead of looking out into the future, right, and thinking, oh, I need this, I need that to be successful, that's spending a lot of time in this state of lack, this state of what I don't have. And I feel like that if you spend this 10 years in this state, it's not good for your overall well-being. And if we can look back on the amazing things we have in our lives, for instance, this podcast, like sitting here, the amazing things I have in my life, like my family, my car, my friends, my bed, like it's very simple. The sunrise, like the coffee in the morning, that is abundance in my life. And what begins to happen is from within, I begin to feel fulfilled. Do you know what I mean? So
100%.
I'm spending instead this time thinking on what I do have instead of what I don't have. And you know how this works with attracting what you want in your life? I think you're about to say this, Jared. It's like when you focus on abundance, more abundance comes. When you focus on lack, more lack comes.
Yeah, it was I'm probably known for someone that reads a couple of pages of a book and then moves to the next one, but there's something I took out of the Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama is identifying the difference between pleasure and happiness. And we're continuously chasing the newest iPhone, and then once that cracks, we want the fucking newest one. Or once your mate gets a new one, we want the newest one from there. And I think what's been really good that I feel like what we've identified within this small young group of community that we've attracted through T-Flaps and the gym and through the private studio and Bridge the Gap and whatnot is I think where some people are conscious of it and some people are subconscious of it, but unconscious of it, sorry, is that we're happy. The happiness is the little things like you said, not the pleasures. And I think once we can identify the difference between pleasure and happiness, we can start to have the emotional intelligence to be able to pick up on the things that really set our soul on fire rather than driving the newest Audi or grabbing the newest watch, because that's only sustainable for a short amount of time.
Yeah, and the question is, how do I live a life like that? How do I live a life by design to be happy? And I really think it is chasing fulfillment, pursuing fulfillment, because happiness sort of emits from fulfillment and being fulfilled. But you're not fulfilled, quite literally by definition, when you're in a state of lack.
Sure.
So if we focus on abundance and focus on what we do have in our life, we become filled up.
So how do you think,
you know?
How do you think for someone who right now is in a very materialistic mindset, whether they think it or not, as someone who is constantly chasing, who's on the Apple website looking, when's the new iPhone coming out, when's the new this coming out, like when's the new car, all this kind of stuff. Where do you think, what do you think is the turning point for them? Where do you think it starts? Because it always has to start very small and very basic. There has to be a trigger. And we talked about it before about it's a timing game. So right now, someone's not ready to hear it. Someone is.
The people here are ready to hear it. That's what matters, right?
Well, that's right.
And if someone's in that state of mind, CUNY, it's like, I don't have any right to tell them otherwise. That's your state of mind. That's your life. Like, if, like Jack Delosa said the other day, on your podcast about Socrates, like an unexamined life is life not worth living. And that runs so deep, because if you're reflecting about what you want, then as Dan Ballard said again, like, I just love your podcast. It's your life. You own it. This is what you have. So you can live however you like. And that's living a life by design. And when other people get into your head about how you should be, what you should be like, whether you're materialistic or not, whether you're spiritual, whether you're physical, like whatever someone is telling you to do, that's the voice of others. That's the life of default. And like, F that, you know. What really is important is trying to, whether you're materialistic or not, I have a really interesting position with this, because I think I went through this stage. Like, I was a really spiritual person a couple of years ago, and soul searching and all that sort of stuff. And I thought that money and materialism they had a negative connotation to them. But the more and more I began to listen to the voice within and listen to my own voice and craft the life I wanted to see, these material things, you don't want to strive for your entire happiness out of these things, but material things are you trying to reflect who you are, right? So for instance, if I want a nice car, if I want a nice watch, if I want nice clothes or nice people in my life or a house, like, for me, that's always a strive towards a reflection of my soul and who I am, and a reflection of the elegance and beauty in the material world. Do you know what I mean? So I think, like, if you listen to who you are and what you really want, then you can have whatever you like. Yeah, you don't want to strive to get the new watch because other people see it and then that'll make you validated and then that'll make you happy. That's rather shallow. But if you want a new watch because it's sick and you love it and it's functional and it's a reflection of the hard work you've put in and it's examined, then that's your life, man. Like, do it, like, rock it. It's sick.
Absolutely.
But
absolutely.
You have to be who you are. You're born with purpose, and it's our quest to fulfill this purpose.
Yeah, and it's always an association. It's exactly what you're saying. It's like, if that presents well to you, if that really, really, really makes you happy, like to wear that watch, to wear that tight suit, to wear something that you've earned, something that you strived for. Like, why do we get haircuts if we're not, if we're these non-materialistic people?
Hairdresser.
Why? Because
I haven't had Jake.
Nick and Jake need jobs.
I haven't had Jake
jobs. but we do it because it makes us feel better. It makes us feel confident. It makes us feel great on the inside to walk around with that little bit of confidence. And that's not unhealthy.
No, not at all.
That's not unhealthy because, I guess if there's other factors as well, like there's the hair and there's the $500,000 suit, again, that's fine. But who are you without that as well?
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like it's the ability to also let go of that, but understand that it does bring you more confidence. Just like putting good food in your body makes you better, makes you improve.
Absolutely.
And so I think it all comes down to that association.
Coming back to your question,
yeah,
but
sure.
it's probably someone, and I know Jesse met, like when he was saying it's their life, and I 100% agree, but even starting with like turning off the music and just recognizing what you're grateful for is a really great way to start to look within for your answers and appreciate what you have. Doesn't matter, you can still be materialistic off those things and want to chase those beautiful things, but look, I think for myself, it's about looking within first, and then those things being a byproduct of my happiness and the influence and what I'm creating. So even by simply just being grateful for something, recognizing every day while you're driving.
Man. It's that simple.
Sure,
Like, waking up, do 10 gratitudes, and you'll do that for a month, and you'll see the change. You'll see that abundance in your life. And when you really focus on things that you're grateful for, like we said earlier, more things happen to come up into your life. Like, it's just, you begin to have this relationship with the world where you embrace it and it embraces you. When you trust, and I know this gets a bit strange for some people, but if
It's your podcast, bro. Go as strange as you want.
But I think these boys that listen to this, if that are here, like, they want to learn and they want to know different people's different perspectives, and a lot of audiences are forgiving and very open. You're really smart. But I think that when we focus on what we're grateful for, right, this abundance comes into our life, and we have this relationship with the world where we get to play a part in designing what we want to see. And like, it's quite interesting when you have a faith in the universe for what things will happen in your life. Patience is a big part of it. Waiting for the right moment to say something and trusting that, oh, I know this is going to happen. And that abundance is a root of manifestation. It gets a bit strange in the words and the syntax, or rather the terminology.
Own it.
Yeah, right. Because I feel like most of the people that listen to this podcast understand what I mean. But it comes down to a faith that the universe is supporting me.
And that's actually really funny. Like I'm looking at you as you're saying that, and you're looking at Jake, and I don't know if there's some form of like you feel like there's a reason that Jake sitting over there is here, and whatever that is, there obviously is a reason that he's here. Not an obvious reason. I think he just wanted to come and watch over. He's coming from Sydney. He's making the move to the Central Coast. He's waking up.
I think he's here for all of us,
But that's what I mean. And I think when you were saying that, I was kind of thinking, how many times have we experienced something, say rocked up to, like in my field, content creation, rocked up to a shoot, and you've got things that maybe someone who's not supposed to be there, or you've got things aren't going to plan. You set this expectation and all of a sudden it doesn't happen. It's like, how often do we look at that and go, be so tunnel vision that we go, that didn't happen how I wanted it to. That's everything's wrong. That association with that situation. It's like, but hang on, like, what if we flip it and go, well, that's how it happened, and why did it happen like that? I feel like you said, having that trust in the universe, and I'm so with you on that. It's like there is a reason for it, and I think we create these expectations in our mind. Expectation is an absolute killer. To think how something should be and not allow it just to be is setting yourself up for failure more often than not. And I think when we just broaden our lens and go, you know what, like, if it doesn't go the way that I'm planning, let's just go with it. And let's just, like, this conversation, it's like we had questions and we were going to go down a list and we were going to go, what was your childhood like? What are your parents like? What was your relationships like? What are you now? What's your dreams? Whatever. It's gone completely way off that. And it's like, let's let it go, because it's a great conversation. And it's led us to right now. Yeah. And I just find that so fascinating. And I think the power of, what I've learned is that for us to assume and say that the universe doesn't work in magical ways, and there's no greater power up there, and there's no that you can't design your life and you can't manifest these things. To say that without actually, sure, you may not be able to prove it, but you can't prove against it either. And so I think that curiosity is what allows us to go, you know what? why not just open the lens and allow it to come in?
Yeah, it's a very deep thing, and I mean,
It's very
you
deep.
do have to do a bit of soul searching, and
Yeah.
and like I've gone down that nihilistic path before, but I held the belief, and I decided that this isn't what I want to do. This isn't what I choose to believe, and I decided again craft my perspective about and really go to those foundations of what I believe in, which really builds your character and who you are. That's why you guys can pick up on my intention and my energy. Because I feel like I've probably worked on that quite a lot. For someone listening today, like, what are those things that we can work on to begin to question our beliefs? Is quite literally ask yourself, why do I believe that? And examine it, because you can play a part in developing your character.
Was there a low point you brought up that you had to set some foundations?
Yeah, for sure.
When were you just like this from birth, or where did it happen? Was there an epiphany moment? Was it a breakup? Was it an argument? Where I feel like, well, myself, I feel like we all have a starting point into the space of personal development and wanting to learn more. Where did it start, and what did it come from?
Yeah, it's a great question, man. Thank you for asking that, because it's interesting growing up with two older brothers. Shannon, my middle brother, had a hernia when he was a child, and screaming and crying and a lot of pain, and caused my mum a lot of pain, my parents a lot of pain getting through that. Nothing to do with his fault, and he got over it and he's okay. But when I was a baby, 4 years later, my mum would always rub her belly and say, like, I'm going to be the happiest child, I'm going to be the calmest child, because I just think that she wanted to not have another hernia baby. Sorry, Shad. But it's interesting, because I asked my folks about this the other night. I was like, what can I talk about on the Bridge the Gap podcast? What value can I bring to the audience? And this was what we talked about in growing up. And when I was born, I was apparently a really good little kid and a real happy boy growing up. But as you do grow up and you begin, usually around teenagehood, to question these things, and one of those, moments where it was like, wow, I'm alive, I'm conscious, I have a part to play in this world. Like we were talking about earlier with this grand picture, you're a cog in the wheel. It isn't all about you, and you got to have faith in it. Like, the world exists if you're here or not.
Yeah.
But you have a part to play in this time of the universe because you were born. Yeah. Right? Before and after, it's a different question. But right now, you got to listen and think about who you are to play your part.
Fuck yeah.
And when it comes down to like moments of when this started, when I was a teenager, growing up, I was always such a social butterfly. And I've become a school teacher now, I think, because it's just so congruent with people and talking to people and understanding folks, and I just love it. And at school, I was just this big social butterfly and just cruised through my subjects, but wanted to know more about people, because I just find them the most beautiful thing in the world next to nature, is that individuals, they're working and they're nuts and bolts, you know what I mean? What do they bring to the world? Because when I realize like I have a part to play, I wonder so much about how I fit in with other people around me. Yeah. And getting older, it's quite interesting. Yeah, everyone has pain, and it's one of the things like, Cooney, that you went through with doing your immersion in Bali and that sort of stuff, to recognize that, I haven't had a trauma. So what good am I to, what value do I bring to other people? But our stories are inherently valuable, and we all have pain, and we experience that just at the same amount of depth that Jared has. Do you know what I mean? So getting through this pain, regardless of whether it's a breakup or a death or something tragic, you can't compare it to other people and then expect to get over it. You can't say, look at all the other pain in the world. Like, what? I can't potentially be suffering.
Sure.
But that, quite deeply, that again is BS.
Of course.
So you have to recognize that you're hurting, and to get through that, you have to address what your heart is feeling.
Sure.
I just had a huge epiphany. like I think I felt like I can now feel Cooney's pain is like we've been brought up to think like, and I mean this with the utmost respect because I am so grateful for my life, but we get told to think when something happens to us, well, someone will come up to us and be like, oh, well, at least you got food on the table, or at least you got a home over your head. And I felt like we're almost conditioned to think we have nothing to be to be sad about or upset about. But it's like that's actually a bad conditioning mindset to have, because then we don't feel the need that we're okay to open up and to be vulnerable. Just we've been told to think that there's African kids out there that live off 5 cents a day or whatever like that, which, don't get me wrong, puts a lot of perspective in my life, but that doesn't mean that we don't have the opportunity to be able to open and present ourselves out too.
Absolutely. I and Bali taught me a lot, and I'm still deconstructing all the lessons, and I'm still looking, and Jake, who I went over to Bali with, I'm sure he's the exact same. Like, yeah, that's where we met. And what I find interesting, like especially in you saying that, and I resonated a lot with what you said earlier in the episode, where it's like I had an incredible life, but it's you can look at that and you go and you can complain, and well, not complain, but go, I haven't had trauma, like I don't deserve this. That was my limiting beliefs. It's like I don't deserve greatness because I haven't experienced real trauma, whatever the fuck real trauma is. Like really, that was my trauma. Like my trauma, my limiting beliefs, and the thing that was completely holding me back, and the thing that was causing all of this energy buildup was telling myself I'm not good enough because I haven't experienced pain like other people. And so I had to hide off in a corner and go, no, I don't deserve that. I'm not deserving of it. And it was completely limiting me. And I can look at that and go, okay, I don't deserve it, and so I'm going to go and put myself in a hole and not reach my potential and not strive for things. Or you can accept it and go, you know what? I've been given an incredible opportunity, and let's stand on this opportunity I've been given, throw my hands up high and give what I can and experience what I've been given.
And it's so beautiful. And anyone listening, like right now, because I try and keep in mind the audience here, and we've been given an awesome hand to stand on those people's shoulders. But at the same time, you don't have to ask permission to do these things. So much of the time we wait around to get approval.
Correct.
For someone to say, yeah, go chase it, or throw your hands up. But again, like there's so many F that and
don't poke the bear. You're winding me up. I'm going to start getting angry here.
It's quite literally, you don't need to ask for permission from someone else to do what you dream of. You know, it is your life. It's your time, and you're a fucking rock star. So go and kill it, man.
Yeah.
This is a time to be who you are, because there's no one like you.
So on that, to continue on with that, because one thing that you've done so well, and so, you know, we actually almost did the polar opposite with wineify, with Bridge the Gap. We came in and we're like, we're gonna fucking go to the moon, and we're gonna do all these things, and
we might
whatever.
Still end up there.
You know what? I have no doubt that we'll end up somewhere great. For you've had an incredibly, I think the perfect amount, and this is looking at it from the outside, a great amount of patience and understanding of the process, not going too hard. Obviously balancing, you've got uni and you've got work and you've got, you're a family man and a community man, and so there's this great balance. But on the side, you've slowly been building wineify. So that's what I really want to dive into now is, where did the idea come from? How did you bring it to fruition? Because that can be a very scary thing as well, is starting something and going, you know what, like, I'm just going to give it a crack. Like, what was the thought process? Where did it come up? Tell us the story of wineify.
For the benefit of the audience, wineify is a little business I started where I make personalized wine bottles for people, or personalized wine labels rather, which I compare the personality of you to the personality of grapes found in wine. And it's just a fun little idea. Like, we have great ideas every single day. You guys have great ideas. The audience has great ideas. And some of those ideas we pursue. And with this little business, it's quite literally just to implement the things I'm learning in my postgraduate degree. So at the end of last year in November, I decided to do an MBA, which is a Master of Business Administration at UON. and you can do another degree hand in hand. So I decided to do a Master of Marketing as well. Never done business before, did an undergraduate in teaching, so taking on something completely new just seemed like so scary. But I really wanted to learn this stuff because my soul was just yearning to do more. And so tracking just a little bit backwards, I decided to start this little business to implement all the things I was learning. And like, I consider myself a lifelong learner, and I really want to learn, and I teach people how to learn all the time. And one of the biggest things is utilizing your active memory. And active memory is completely different to rote learning, how we memorize things. We read a book and we memorize. Active learning is implementing the things you're learning so that you can jog your memory, get fitter, and access that new information quicker. So wineify was to implement all the things I was learning at business school, quite literally to do just that, just to learn things. So all the marketing or the business, there's more of a stake in it. There's more of an actual risk in it. So it's not so hypothetical just doing case studies at university.
Yeah.
So, and before this degree, I still am, and I was a high school teacher. I teach English and drama and arts. And I was really hoping to push into a PhD, but it just seemed so narrow, and I just wanted to do more, but I just didn't know what. So I did some soul searching. I really had to question it. And I saw that degree, for me personally, as a great opportunity to learn what I wanted to learn. And some other people learn differently. They jump straight in. And it's not for everyone. Like my brothers don't necessarily like university, but I really enjoyed it. And that's where I'm at right now. And I mean, yeah, it's just been such a blessing. Yeah, absolute blessing.
So how did the podcast manifest?
Oh, so true. Yeah. So at the end of last year as well, doing high school teaching, and I still do it. It's such a pleasure. But I always wanted to talk to people. And I think it's one of my big skills is being able to talk to people, which is quite interesting because I never thought that was a skill, to have the social skills, to have the social awareness, and just to recognize how people feel and to make them feel comfortable and ask the right questions at the right time. And so with the podcast, I decided to do it under the wineify brand, to talk to young Central Coast artists, creators, entrepreneurs, to give them a platform to empower their story and and just give them the space, because it just felt like I would talk to people and there just wasn't the space or the time to really dive deep into their story. So that's where that started. Yeah. And
so where's that? Because both Jad and I have been on it, and I think early on as well, and it's come leaps and bounds. I mean, like I said before, it was something that from the outside looking in, like it's been a really gradual process for you, and I think you've built it really steadily. What trajectory is it taking?
Totally. Like with one of the adages I mentioned earlier, like striving for progress over perfection. Yep. It's one of the biggest things, when you start a little project, you want it to be perfect. You want it to look great, but it takes time. So it's quite literally, it's progress over perfection. And it's just every couple of days thinking about, well, what's a little bit of progress I can make here, even just 1%. And I think that I implement that around in a few other areas of my life, and not being hard on yourself. So with wineify, like I said, it was just an idea. So in the future, I really didn't want to get to the end of business school and then try and implement everything I was learning at the end of it, because it just felt like I'd have to backtrack all this stuff and try and implement it into a new business. So I thought, let's do it with this, see how it goes. Another year and a half, who knows where it'll be. I hope to keep talking to people, because that is just so valuable. And so for me personally, I get so much out of it. And I know that the coast does with the little audience I have. But it's such a quality audience, and that's what is so good about having quality over quantity. And the coast is brilliant for that, because we empower each other. We support each other. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Vision Letiani is someone that me and Cooney have dived into, and I consider him like a mentor, even though obviously I haven't had the opportunity to meet him, but someone I look up to. And he talked about we're a soul first, having a human experience. And it's about, you talked about it before, finding the purpose of life is almost finding your purpose. Teaching, wineify, business, are these all vehicles that align to a very aligned soul print. They look this purpose. Like where's it going? Where does it all? Because if you looked at the one thing, the book was trying to find the one thing, and is that common across those between teaching, wineify, doing your business course? Are these vehicles to move into some place where you can be one thing doing something, or where is it? Where are you going? Where is it?
Yeah, it's quite hard because you have the dream world and then you have the real world. The dream world is all the things that you have up in the air, potentialities, and then you have the real world. How do I earn money? What do I do? Who do I connect with? And bringing those two worlds into alignment and bringing those elements of the dream world into your real world is what manifestation is. It's interesting you say, where are you going? It's like, well, life is like, you've got roller coasters going on all the time. So there's many different paths, but we are dynamic. We're human beings. Like, we can have a bunch of shit going on and we can handle it. Do you know what I mean? You can have a business, you can have a day job, you can have a podcast, you can fit in your workouts, you can create so much in your life. You are not one linear. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a guy that owns a podcast, right? I'm a guy who has a podcast. I'm a guy who has a teaching degree. I'm a guy that happens to do business school. Like, don't put yourself in a hat. You can take it off any moment, put another one on. Do you know what I mean? Like, when you label people, you negate them. And one of the worst things that we can do to ourselves is to negate the potential opportunities that we could reach. Yeah. So just recognize that, you are a soul having a human experience. If you want to think about it like that, you can.
Sure.
Another way is that you're a dynamic person. You're a valuable person, and you can fit into so many different spheres of life. But so much of the time we put ourselves in a box and limit our imagination of what could be.
Confidentiality might be a big thing, but what are some of the things in the dream world that you think about?
Yeah, it's quite interesting you say confidentiality, because there are students as well, which is interesting, and you have a relationship with the Department of Education, which is important. But in my dream world, it's to create a life of design. And those are the things in which I want to see in my world that bring me fulfillment and happiness and stability, whatever that is, to create things that I want to see. So it's just getting closer to that, but also recognizing where I'm at. So it's this really funny relationship of being humble and being ambitious and being quiet and patient. And do you know what I mean? So it's always a quest of reflection and just being cool, like just being relaxed. It's like, this is life. It's supporting you in everything that you want to do. But question what you really want to do, because if you ask for something and you mean it, you'll probably get it, whether it's positive or negative.
Yin Yang's so important with that. That's why we're obviously, me and Cooney, some people closest to us know what we're creating behind the scenes, which will be revealed soon. But actually recently it feels like we've sort of had a bit of a shift as well since the work I've been doing on myself, but with Bridget, very, very visionary. So I think once you can have that person in your life, that balances you out and you can both sort of bounce off each other. It allows you to sort of, Cooney messaged me the other day saying, like, I'm reading this book called Rocket Fuel, and I asked him to read it so he understood how my mind operates, and he said, I need to complement that and to listen to that, and then we can look at the process and then try and make shit happen.
Yeah.
Because I do think like that.
Well, that's right. And it's exactly what Jesse was saying before. It's like you've got the dream world and then you've got the real world. And it's like, it's about, I guess, taking those dreams and like you were saying, it's like you were saying before, Jared, I won't dive into it, but there's a story about a little kid that you saw and how he was so inquisitive. And I think when we grow up, we lose that. I think we really lose that curiosity, and we still have that inner child. We still have that
100%.
inner child, but I think it becomes so layered and so conditioned to go like all these things out there, all these things that could take out our minds, like butterflies and ideas and things that we could just get lost in, and our imagination goes wild, which, to be honest, I think holds so much value. It's something that I learned. It was one of the biggest lessons in coronavirus. It's like I had so much more time to be imaginative and to be creative. And so what did I do? I fucking did that. And that felt incredible. And I think like to allow our mind to wander, but then it's like, okay, well, what can we actually create out of that? It's great. It's great to dream and it's great to do all these things, but like you said, we got the real world where we've got to make money and we've got to live and we've got to support ourselves and whatever. And I don't think we should, I think it's finding the right balance for sure. I don't think we can let this idea of, we've got to make money so we have to settle. It's like, hang on, like I've got this dream thing here and the reality is I've got to make money, but it doesn't mean that the dreams can't create the money. We can't bring both
100%.
together and go, boom.
You get one life. Everyone says it,
That
but
we know of.
Yeah.
One life in this body.
Yeah. Whoa, brain explosion.
Hopefully I get a better one next time. I want to be big and muscly like Briggs.
Let's keep this G on the spirituality level. But like we do get one life, and it's like, man, like it's something I pop up in a video I watched yesterday. It's like, what's your statement when they say at your funeral? Like, what impact did you make? What memories have you created when you're laying in your deathbed? Like, so it's that fine line. I know personally, I'm definitely onto the line of like, fuck it, I'm going to create and I'm just trying to attract, and just being an embodiment of who I am as much as possible, and then serve from that place. And finances will come, those things will come, because I also don't want to end up having something happen to me and to never gone for that, and to have missing things that I never had the opportunity to fulfill.
Of course.
So I think it's a matter of, being smart with your things and balancing that, but fuck it, be ambitious and chase your heart.
Absolutely. And I mean, you know, what you're talking about there with imagination, if we limit our imagination, we would limit what we can do. You know, we get told to be put in this default life, and a default life is anything that someone's told you to do, whether that's society, family, friends. These are defaults because you're falling into the old pattern. A life by design is something that you want to do, something that you want to create, and our imagination plays such a big part in that, because in our dream world we can think about, what could be? Where could I go? And the real world is quite literally bringing it down and bringing it into action. And that's something that I've learned to balance. And listen, when you become really dreamed out, you open too many tabs and you get scattered. So to distill that, so when you recognize that you're getting a bit scattered, you need to distill what's actually going on in the real world. So recognize what's going on in the real world and focus on that, and recognize as well that there are dreams that I need to fulfill.
You know what's funny though? Like, I'm going to challenge what you said and bringing it into the real world. And I was saying, I was just saying before about how there's limitations of what we really know, and I see you, you see me, we've got all these senses that are going on, and this goes quite deep, but to have those dreams and then to have the real world and to have to come back, like it's a matter of questioning again, like what is the real world? Maybe it's a topic for another time, but it's just something that I'm so fascinated by, this idea that we are incredibly limited in what we understand. And I mean, how do you take that and quantify that as an idea and go, oh great, now I'm just gonna think of it, oh there it is, like. And to be honest, like that's something I've noticed a lot of. I've been listening to, again, Vision and Mind Valley, and been hearing, I think this is where my curiosity really comes from, is hearing people who have used their mind to create new physical realities and
move the world forward.
And I think it's something that, although we have to go, okay, we are limited with our knowledge and we do what we can with what we've got, I think it's so important to stay curious and stay open.
Absolutely. And CUNY, it's a tool. Our mind's a tool. You got to recognize that. You're not your mind.
Sure, absolutely.
Just as much as you're not your liver.
Yeah.
Your mind is quite literally, and people can detest this, but your mind is a tool to solve problems, right? And who are you, right? And this gets really difficult because some people shut off, or it's difficult because our language can be so limited.
Yeah.
Highly recommend reading
Absolutely.
Focus by Daniel Goleman and Power Now by Eckhart Tolle, these sorts of things. But if we can recognize that our mind's a tool and that we own it, doesn't own us.
Yeah.
We can bring those things into reality.
Yeah.
And we can quite literally solve anything. So when we ask ourselves, I want a better life, I want certain things in my life, we ask ourselves a question and our mind will answer it in the limitations of that question. What happens if we ask a better question to create some sort of life that we want? Perhaps it is, for me, the past few months, it's been, my original question is I want to get good marks at uni, for instance. It's a pretty basic question. What about, I want, how can I get great marks at university, learn deeply and harmoniously, be calm, have a social life, and be fulfilled? Like, if the quality of the question determines the quality of the answer, and we all know this, but we have to be reminded of it because our patterns of thought are just on. So if we can recognize that the quality of our questions determines the quality of our answers, that's when we can begin to live a life by design.
That's
you can
so
peel the layers.
true.
You can peel the layers back because that gives you depth to be able to work your way, reverse engineer that question. It's like, well, what's one thing I can do? Or what are the things I can do this week that allow? It sounds like your question is in a way and in your intention. It sounds like your question is your intention for your study. So it's like reverse engineering that to say, okay, based on I wanted to achieve this outcome of keeping a balance in my life, word that's thrown around a lot, but you know what I mean. But how can we reverse engineer that so we can play to all of that caps that we wear in our life, so you can then bring it back to a weekly thing, to a daily thing. So it's like, how can you set yourself up for success to hit that?
For sure. And for the people that don't have the resources, i.e. the learned behaviors from that, because I feel like you guys are in this development space and the people that are listening are in this space too. But quite literally, that was off the top of my head, that question. But when we think about a quality question, right, we can really just ask yourself it and your mind will answer it. It just solves problems. That's what it does.
Yeah.
And when you come to realize like, oh, there's more to life, what is reality? And like you said, CUNY, that's when it gets a bit deeper, and whether you call it your spirit or you know, who you are or whatever it's just language.
Sure.
But to recognize that you're not your mind and you can turn it off, something happens. Something very deep happens.
Yeah. And like it can be even the simple thing of just asking a question to get a answer. It doesn't have to be it can be so simple. I remember.
Deep, aren't we?
Well, when I was, it's not deep actually. It's funny because the first time and when you said like we all know this, I think there's a lot of people who have missed it. And I remember there was a real low point in my life, and I ended up about 2:00 in the morning sitting down with my best buddy after he finished work, and he said that to me. He goes, just ask the question and you'll get the answer. Like, just as simple as that. And I remember testing it on my way back. I saw 2 pieces of rubbish and I picked them up, and we've got take 3 for the C. And I go, I just want one more piece of rubbish. Can I have one more piece of rubbish? Like literally turned my eyes, 1 piece of rubbish. Didn't see any more pieces of rubbish because I asked for 1 piece. Didn't see any more, picked it up, 3, boom. And I think, how can we quantify that? How can we kind of deconstruct it?
Because it's not of the mind.
That's
it's of
right.
the universe.
That's right.
It's of something bigger. Like,
yeah.
For instance, like this instance right now.
Sure.
Over the past year, I've grown such a faith in this power that it's become. I don't even have to worry about it. It's just a matter of oh, I can't wait to meet Jake. And then he
Right.
rocked up, like quite literally, like, and it's like, oh, there it is.
Well, there it is,
And
sure.
these instances happen all the time. And it starts with that. It starts with that exact question.
I know
It's like,
everyone can resonate with that. Like it's how many times have we just thought about someone and then they call? Or how many times have we thought about something and then all of a sudden it appears? We want a car, we see that car everywhere. Like it happens. And I mean, it can come back to the saying where your attention goes, energy flows. I took it first. I want to...
Tony Robbins took it first.
quality of the question. In terms
Yeah,
of quality of the
that's
answer.
right,
I know this
that's
is too much
right.
for the class, man. Like you ask like a bunch of teenagers a crap question and you'll get
Sure.
a crap response.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
ask them a
Shit
banging
shit
question
response.
and you'll get a great response. And it's the
Absolutely.
exact same with us.
But also with intent as well, because it comes back to the bullshit detector that pretty much every person on this planet has. Like if we're engaging, and this is if we're engaging one-on-one with people, it's like you ask them a question with no real involvement energetically, in terms of we sit here now and I'm looking away and I'm like, Jesse, what's the meaning of life? And you're just like, well, fuck, why are you asking me this deep question, but you're not looking at me? Like as simple as that. And I think even kids, their radars are probably much higher and much more sensitive. And
Get them in a group of 30 and they
Absolutely.
become this bull.
And you know what?
With
I
eyes.
give so much credit to teachers. I think about this all the time. I think, teacher, I reckon after an hour class, if they've taught one thing, one tiny little thing, it's a success for the class. Like I really think that, and massive like credit to the patience that all teachers, including yourself, have. But yeah, I think especially with kids, it's like it's important to not only ask them the right questions, but ask it with intent. And I think like that bullshit detector comes from the energy that we're portraying and the energy that we're putting out. So especially, working with young people, it's like
you can't fake it in front of kids, and
No.
they can read your energy from a mile away.
Yeah.
And I think what really good teachers do of any form, whether it's a high school or a speaker or DMR trainers, really good teachers feel the energy of a class and they manipulate it in a positive way.
yeah,
And the best way to do that is to be open and real with a class so that they can, or with a person, so they can feel your energy and that they know that they can trust you. And what, at least in my practice and the good teachers that I've had the privilege of learning, is that they can adapt and manipulate that energy in a positive way towards the learning. And it's an amazing thing to see. And that's what behavior management is. But I think a lot of teachers, this is a real superpower. And I think I have that when it comes to people, that I can read energy, and it's usually through language. Like you said, it's a matter of really listening. Like Dan said the other day, it's listening, just not waiting to talk. It's really listening and drinking it in.
yeah, absolutely. And then coming with intent. I mean, words can be very shallow. And you say like a lot of it is through language, a lot of it's nonverbal as well. And I think a lot more than what we realize is nonverbal and is just, and that's what Dan does so well. That's what Jake does so well. It's like, just be there. People will get you without the need to say anything. And that's one thing I think both Jared and I are learning.
80% of
very
how we
much.
communicate is non-verbal anyway.
Sure. Yeah.
I just spend too much time in the other 20%.
Yeah.
It's just one of the other 80.
I'm trying to work out, and one thing I want to ask you, because you said you took a very, very spiritual route as well, and then kind of came back. Do you remember the point where you kind of got quite deep, where it was kind of like, I need to turn back, but where did you make that change? And did that come around the time with your relationship, your past relationship?
It's really tough because people go through all these different realms of mental, physical, spiritual, self-development. And there are such a range of different people that listen to this podcast that will tap into the physical side, especially with sport and things like that. My father was huge physical guy, played for rugby league for Australia, like played Balmain. His name's Bruce McGuire, if you want to look into him, through the late 80s and 90s, and played for Australia and all this great stuff. But I was no prodigy at all, like at all. So
Maybe soon. You never know.
I didn't go into the physical side, into sport so much, as you could tell. But I went into the mental side a lot more growing up out of high school. And the spiritual side sort of followed that, because I was doing so much soul searching, asking who I was and what do I want and what do I believe, you know? What do I choose to believe?
Yeah.
What do I really choose to believe? What do I feel? Like, what do I feel is true? What are we here for? And those real deep questions. Who am I? Like, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
That shit plays on your mind when you're a kid. And
Yeah.
as you get older, like, if you feel like you haven't come to a point where you've accepted a good answer, and that's what I was obsessed with thinking, like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And it runs deep, but it's like that shit cuts through a lot of the other stuff. And that is a knife which will cut through the opinions of others, cultural crap. You know, it's like, what am I actually doing here? Who am I? And how do I want to live? Those are the questions which, if you can begin to think about and listen to your own voice, you're on the right path. Yeah.
Seems like your curiosity and wanting to know more about people led you to have the awareness within yourself. Because as you spoke about earlier in the podcast, you love people and you wanted to understand people, and you love people second to nature. So it sounds like your curiosity sparked the idea of listening to the voice that you have within, because we all think that voice is woo-woo and not us, and a lot of people just silence that voice, but that voice is your soul and your heart, so you can't silence that shit.
Now, what we think is woo-woo is other people's language approaching the same issue, which we find that we can't communicate, or we communicate through a different way. And we think, oh, that's sort of bullshit. Like, what are you talking about? That's the limitation of language. So
Yes.
people sort of put their guard up, because it's like, oh, we're going to do meditation, or we're going to look within. And this language...
With the eyes, do they?
Yeah, we're going to look within. Right? And people get like turned off, like, I don't want to look within. What's wrong with it? Like, what's in there? There's nothing in there.
Sure.
And you know, it's like, you've got to approach things your own way. Meditating for me is it can be walking, can just be talking to people, can be enjoying the sun, but it's quite literally how you want to do things. And if you're developing those aspects of yourself, then that's awesome. But again, it's your life. What do you want to live? How do you want to live? And if you're not hurting anyone or the world or the environment, then live how the hell you want to live.
Sure. Absolutely.
Be happy.
Absolutely.
And attain fulfillment through things that you love. It's difficult, because when you try and talk to a larger audience, you generalize. But to be specific, some of the things that have helped me, it's like focusing on gratitude is a cause of abundance in my life. Surrounding myself with people I want to be around, and the way you really do that is being focusing within, because as people say, vibe attracts your tribe. This is just the biggest testament to that. We only met this year, because my whole frequency changed.
Yeah, what? That freaks me out.
Yeah, it
That's
does.
a weird thing.
So you got to think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it shows the beauty of when you connect with someone on a deeper level, because it's not, as I say to the boys here on a Monday night, I said, this is beyond the training. Like, half of majority of what you feel now is an energetic feeling, not the lifting of the weight or the talking to the boys or the encouragement to one another. It's the energetic feel of what you have when you leave, which is why we've become so close. You don't need to know. We've been made to believe that your best friends and your closest people have to be the ones that have been with you for years and years and years, and it takes time to build trust and this and that. And yeah, okay, in different aspects it does, but if you energetically pull towards someone, and I say I don't have favorites within the gym. No favorites. No favorite classes. I love the 9:30 ladies. I love ladies classes. I love mids classes in a different way. The reason why I love 9:30 classes, it feels like I have 10 mums. And I feel like I feel so loved.
So the energy.
Yeah, so it's a different energy. So it's like with the boys, there's a different energy there. So I'm energetically pulled towards people I can't help that. I'm pulled towards it. It doesn't mean I have any favorites. I have no favorites. I want the best for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it comes down to timing as well. Like we were speaking about before, it's like there's times where you feel that you're more connected to someone than another, and I think it can be very hard because you are dealing with so many different people, so many different personalities, and being a leader and trying to run a business, and it's like, fuck, like I just feel like this person really needs my attention right now, but I'm battling this idea that I have to share my energy. Of course, and that's not the way energy works.
You don't have to. And listen, you don't have to take on people's pain to understand them. You know what I mean? So much of the time we avoid taking on people's pain because we feel like we have to bear the load. And at times, problem shared is a problem halved. That's great. But again, you don't have to take on someone's pain to help them.
Sure.
Or even understand them. And being a teacher, like, you deal with a lot of pain with kids, but you have to manage that energy load. So a lot of the time it's having a bit of a shield. If you're an approachable person, approachable guy, really loving, like with me, that's how I was, and I didn't have a shield up. I trusted to it easily. Yeah. And if you're a person who trusts too easily, it's a real shame, but people can see it and take advantage of it in a negative way. And to combat that, you can trust, but you can still have a shield, an energetic shield up to say, I can hear you, I can understand you, I can even help you. But take your time in giving your trust. This is me talking to my old self. Take your time in giving your trust so freely, because that is your energy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's so powerful. And I was actually just thinking then, it's like, how do we end? Because we normally have a wrap-up question, which is giving advice to the younger self. And that sounds like that advice. It's like, was there a time that you can pinpoint where you were at a low point, whether it was a certain situation or a certain period or a certain conversation? Was there a time when you were really doubting, maybe it was doubting all the work that you'd done, whether it was a real identity crisis, a real who am I? Like, where am I going? Is this all worth it? What's this all about? Like, was there a time, and knowing what you know now, what would you tell that person?
All the time. With university, taking on new stuff, like taking on a whole business degree, not knowing anything about business, like that was hard. Managing relationships, managing your feelings, how you don't, when you're emotionally illiterate, like with anxiety and things like that, the anticipation of things really got me down. And these sorts of realms, like there are multiple points. There are multiple points of severity too. And we all feel these points in our lives because we're human beings. But I mean, to get over these things, it's so multifaceted. But some of the biggest things that I've really carried through is knowing that it's not going to be like that forever. You know what I mean? This thing will pass. And you are stronger than you think. We weren't born with a soft soul. We weren't born not being able to handle the cards we've been given. And we're a lot stronger than we think. So to have that faith and to know that you can get through things off your own back, when you're really at those low points, helps, because you know that you can do it. And your parents, your friends, they can help so much. But deeply, like, you're the person that you're with 100% of the time.
Yeah.
You steer the ship of your life.
Absolutely. And when you get negative voices in your ship, that's when the water gets in and it sinks. That's the voice of others. That's the life of default. Steering your ship towards the place that you want to go is your life by design.
I'm going to steer mine to Hawaii and plant myself there.
I'll hear it up.
Why?
This has been such a pleasure, guys, and
Yeah.
anyone here that's still hanging around, thank you so much. It's seriously, this has gone in such a different direction than what we expected, but it's an absolute pleasure,
Always.
and I feel like we've barely touched on things. Like we're only
Sure.
scratched the surface. So if you want to reach
Yeah.
out, please reach out to me on wineify or Yesage.
Jessey
Jessey J.
Jessey J.
Jessey J.
Yeah,
Absolutely, man.
Absolutely love to get coffee with people. Absolutely love to talk to people.
Yeah. Big conversations. And Jesse's always looking for guests.
Yeah,
for
young
his
artists,
podcast.
entrepreneurs, creators. Reach out to me because I do wineify live series, which is Instagram live. So it doesn't really matter about where you are. Or I do podcasts once a month with all sorts of different characters. So it's an absolute
Perfect.
pleasure, and I'm sure the boys will link you to the podcast rather.
Yep.
But it's an experimental style, and it's a development of my brand. It's a development of the things I'm learning at uni. So again, like, follow me on this path. We're young, but we have the mindset, the foundation to seriously traject like a rocket forward. And together we're going to go far.
Yeah, I love that. And what you see is what you get with Jesse. So you heard him here, and he's the same with every single person. So definitely reach out. Bro, thank you.
Thank you.